My wife secretly siphoned $250, $0 from our joint account to fund her affair with my best friend, then convinced me to sign over our family home worth $500, $0 in a shady divorce settlement. Now she's claiming the money and house are hers in court. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd end up here, honestly. Just a few months ago, I was convinced I had the perfect life with Lisa. We'd been married for 10 years, had 2 kids, a nice house in the suburbs, and I thought we were solid. But then, out of nowhere, everything started to unravel. It all came crashing down in a way I never saw coming. I found out she was cheating on me with my best friend, Jake. Yeah, I know it sounds like some soap opera plot, but it was real. And what's worse, she was siphoning money from our joint account, over $250, $0 to fund her affair. I did even realize how deep she'd gone until I stumbled upon the evidence. It started with small things. Lisa's phone became her new best friend. She'd spend hours on it, sneaking away to the bathroom or bedroom to take calls. She'd get defensive if I asked who she was talking to, saying it was just her sister or a doctor's appointment. But I noticed her hiding the phone more often, and her messages were always deleted when I glanced over. She also started working late more often, claiming she had important meetings, but I could tell she was lying. The way she'd avoid eye contact, the nervous energy, it all added up. One night I decided to check her phone when she went to bed. I know invasion of privacy, but I was desperate. I needed to know what was going on. That's when I saw the messages. Texts between her and Jake talking about meeting up, secret plans, and even explicit messages about their sex life. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with my best friend. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. But that wasn't all. As I dug deeper, I found out she'd been siphoning money from our joint account, money we worked hard for, saved for our kids' college fund for our future. I pulled up the bank statements and saw the transfers she'd made over the past 6 months, totaling over $250, $0. Most of it went to accounts in her name, some to cash withdrawals, and a significant chunk to a private account she kept hidden. I was stunned. How could she do this? Why would she betray me like this, especially financially? I started to piece it together. Lisa had always been a little manipulative, but I never suspected she was this cold-blooded. She convinced me to sign over our house, a $500, $0 family home in a shady divorce settlement. She told me it was fair, that she'd take care of everything, and I was too trusting or naive to question it. Now she's claiming the house and the money are hers, saying I had no right to question her. The worst part, I found out she'd been lying about her job, claiming she was working as a consultant, but really she was using that money to bankroll her affair. I confronted her the next morning. I showed her the evidence, the bank statements, the messages. Her reaction was a mix of anger, denial, and condescension. She told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, and that I was accusing her of something she didn't do. She had the nerve to say I was imagining things, that I was insecure, but I knew the truth. I knew everything. Her bitchy smile when she lied, the way she tried to turn it around on me, made me realize just how manipulative she'd become. That moment hit me hard. It was like discovering I'd been living with a stranger all these years. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was financial, legal, and deeply personal. I felt angry, betrayed, humiliated. I had trusted her with everything, and she'd just taken it all: my money, my home, my marriage, my dignity. I couldn't believe I was married to someone who'd lie so effortlessly, who'd cheat on me with my best friend, and then try to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. The shock was overwhelming, and I knew I had to figure out what to do next. After I confronted Lisa that morning, everything changed. She sat there, smirking and acting like she hadn't just betrayed me on every level imaginable. She kept insisting I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of things she didn't do. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had the proof, the bank statements, the texts, the emails. She looked me in the eye and lied through her teeth, claiming she'd never cheated, never siphoned money, never planned to take everything from me. That's when I realized I was dealing with someone who was pure evil, someone who could lie so convincingly to my face while secretly destroying everything we built. I felt a mix of rage and despair. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. For years, I thought we had a good life, that we were partners building something real. But she had been planning her escape, secretly siphoning money to fund her affair with Jake, while I was working late, trusting her, providing for our family. And now she was trying to convince me it was all in my head. I looked at her and I saw the coldness in her eyes, the way she dismissed my feelings like they didn't matter. That was the moment I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. Over the next few days, I started digging into everything. I hired a private investigator to confirm the details of her affair and to track her finances more thoroughly. Turns out, she'd been funneling money into accounts in her name for months. I also got access to the account statements from the bank, and what I saw made my blood boil. She drained over $250, $0 from our joint account, which I'd thought was for our kids' college, our retirement, our future. Instead, she used it to fund her secret life, her trips with Jake, her fancy dinners, her new wardrobe, all behind my back. The most shocking part: she convinced me to sign over our house, our family home, in what she called a fair divorce settlement. She made it sound like she was doing me a favor, that she'd take care of everything, and I was just too naive to see it. I was blind to her manipulation. I signed the papers, trusting her, thinking it was what was best for everyone. Then I find out she's claiming that the house, the money, everything is hers now. She's trying to take everything I thought was ours. I felt completely betrayed, like my entire life had been a lie. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with even more proof. I called her into the living room and laid it all out. The bank statements, the evidence of her affair, the shady divorce papers she pushed me into signing. Her face twisted into a sneer. She told me I was jealous, that I was imagining things, that she'd never cheat on me or steal from us. She accused me of being paranoid, of not trusting her, even though I had all the receipts right there. She lied so effortlessly, so convincingly, it was like she had rehearsed her story in her head over and over. I felt my stomach turn. The betrayal hit harder than I ever thought possible. I'd been living in a nightmare, and I didn't even realize it. I was angry at myself for trusting her so blindly. Angry that she could do this to me, to our family. I was hurt, devastated, and furious all at once. How could she be so selfish, so manipulative? I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, how I missed all the signs. But the truth was, I'd been too trusting, too in love to see what she was really capable of. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything: her smile as she lied, the way she looked at Jake, the money disappearing from our accounts. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to plan my next move carefully. For the first time in years, I felt completely helpless but also determined. I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, for my dignity, for my future. I didn't know how exactly, but I knew I couldn't stay passive anymore. The betrayal had cut so deep that I realized I was going to have to be the one to take control. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations and late-night research sessions. I couldn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her lying to me, smiling that insincere smile, convincing me she was innocent when I knew better. I started gathering every piece of evidence I could find: bank statements, text messages, emails, even recordings of her phone calls when I could get her to slip up. I wanted to make sure I had a solid case, not just for the divorce, but also to fight her claims over the house, and the money she insisted was hers. I hired a lawyer who specialized in high-stakes divorce and financial fraud. The first thing he told me was that I should be prepared for a long, ugly fight. Lisa was smart, manipulative, and she knew how to spin stories to her advantage. She'd already started making her moves in court, claiming that I was a neglectful husband, that I'd been absent emotionally and physically, that she only took money to support her stressful career as a consultant and to fund her secret affair. She twisted everything to make herself look like the victim, which made my blood boil even more. Meanwhile, I also discovered that she had been secretly siphoning money into accounts in her name for months. I found bank transfers, cash withdrawals, and even some offshore accounts she'd set up without my knowledge. The worst part, she convinced me to sign over the house, a family home that held decades of memories, claiming it was a fair settlement, that she'd take care of everything. All her lies designed to make me feel guilty or to get me to agree. I was naive enough to trust her, to believe she'd be fair. Now I saw how deep her deception went. The legal battle started heating up. She filed her claims, insisting the house and the money were hers because I had neglected her, because I was absent emotionally, and because she had invested in our future with the money she stole. She even went as far as to claim I had threatened her, which was a blatant lie. Her attorneys painted her as the victim, the wronged wife trying to rebuild her life after a supposed abusive marriage I supposedly subjected her to. It was all so disgusting. Every day I woke up feeling like I'd been punched again, betrayed and helpless. One day, I caught her in a lie that was so blatant. It made my blood boil. She was claiming she had never met Jake outside of work-related events, that their affair was just a misunderstanding, a one-time thing. But I had text messages, explicit conversations, and even photos of her with Jake, taken secretly at a hotel last summer. I printed everything out and handed it to my lawyer. That was the moment I realized she was trying to spin her way out of the truth, but I had enough evidence to crush her story. Still, I knew it wouldn't be easy. Lisa was a master manipulator, and she knew how to twist words to her advantage. I also discovered she'd been lying about the money she took. She claimed she needed it for urgent medical bills and family emergencies. But I found out she'd been using the funds to fund her affair, to buy herself new clothes, and even to rent a posh apartment downtown where she'd been secretly staying with Jake. The betrayal cut even deeper because she'd taken money meant for our kids' future, our retirement, and had turned it into her personal slush fund for her secret life. I started feeling angry at myself for trusting her, for not seeing the signs earlier, for thinking she was just a little stressed or busy. The truth was, she'd been planning this for months, maybe even years. She'd lied so convincingly, so effortlessly, I almost believed her. But now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who had destroyed everything we built together. I knew I had to fight hard, not just for the house or the money, but for my dignity and for my children's future. I couldn't let her get away with this. Every day I felt like I was walking a tightrope, balancing between anger and sadness, between planning my next move and trying to keep it together for the kids. I knew I had to be strategic. I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me, but I also had to gather every piece of evidence I could find, because I knew she'd try to spin her lies in court. I was starting to realize that this wasn't just about money. It was about trust, betrayal, and making sure justice was served. I'd been naive for too long, but now I was ready to fight back, no matter how ugly it got. The legal process was a nightmare, honestly. Every day I felt like I was fighting a battle on two fronts, one against Lisa's lies and another trying to hold myself together emotionally. She was relentless, spinning her stories in court, claiming to be the victim of my neglect and emotional abuse. She painted herself as a hard-working woman who only took money out of necessity, even though I had the receipts proving she used it for her affair and her own luxury lifestyle. Her attorneys argued that the house was joint property, and since I had signed the papers, I had no claim anymore. That's when I realized she was trying to steal everything I thought was ours, and she was doing everything to make me look like the villain. I fought back hard. I presented all the evidence I had collected: texts, emails, bank statements, the offshore account details, even recordings I'd secretly made of her conversations. It was a lot to handle, but I knew I had to do it. I also hired a forensic accountant to dig into her financials. What they uncovered was staggering. She transferred hundreds of thousands into accounts in her name, some of it offshore, some in cash, all hidden from me. She'd been planning this for a long time. Meanwhile, Lisa's bitchy attitude didn't fade. She kept lying, denying everything, twisting facts and throwing accusations back at me. Whenever I tried to confront her about her affair or the siphoned money, she'd change the subject, call me paranoid, or accuse me of trying to ruin her reputation. She'd tell anyone who'd listen that I was an emotionally abusive husband, that I was neglectful and unfaithful myself, a complete fabrication. It was infuriating. I could see through her lies, but I also knew how good she was at manipulating people. I had to be careful about who I trusted, especially in court. One of the most shocking moments was when her lawyer tried to argue that I had abandoned her emotionally and financially, that I was to blame for her affair and her theft. I couldn't believe the audacity. I had worked my ass off to provide for our family, never missed a payment, never missed a birthday or holiday with the kids. And now, they were trying to turn the tables and make me look like the bad guy. I felt so furious I wanted to scream, but I kept my composure. I knew that if I lost my temper, I'd give her more ammunition. The court hearings were intense. Lisa was a master at emotional manipulation, crying fake tears, acting like she was the victim, trying to sway the judge. She claimed she was forced into the affair because I was emotionally distant, which was a blatant lie. I knew better. I had my own feelings, my own pain, but I refused to let her see me break. I stayed firm, presenting my evidence and maintaining my side of the story. I knew that if I didn't fight for what was rightfully mine, she'd take everything and walk away with a smile on her face. The most gut-wrenching part was when I saw her using our children as pawns. She'd call them crying, telling them I was a terrible father, that I didn't love them, all to sway their opinions. It broke my heart. I tried to stay strong for them, to be the best dad I could, but knowing what she was doing behind the scenes made it even harder. I wanted to protect them from her lies, but I knew I couldn't shield them from everything. Still, I made sure they saw I was there for them, that I loved them unconditionally. Despite everything, I knew I had to stay focused. The fight was far from over, and I could see her desperation growing. She was trying every trick in the book, but I had the evidence, the truth, and the legal backing now. I was determined to make sure she couldn't get away with stealing our house, our savings, and our future. I realized that this wasn't just a fight for money or property. It was a fight for my dignity and for the integrity of what little family we had left. I was exhausted, but I knew I couldn't give up. Not now. Not when she was so close to taking everything I'd worked for. The final stretch of this nightmare came when the court date finally arrived. I was mentally prepared, but nothing could have fully prepared me for what I saw there. Lisa looked smug, confident, like she'd already won. She was dressed to impress, her lawyers whispering behind her, her eyes flashing with that bitchy smirk that told me she thought she had the upper hand. I sat across from her, feeling a mix of anger and resolve. I knew I had everything on my side, proof, evidence, and a clear conscience. But I also knew how cunning she was, and I had to keep my guard up. The courtroom was tense. Her lawyer argued that the house was joint property and that I had signed the settlement voluntarily. She claimed I'd been negligent, that I'd abandoned her emotionally, and that the money she took was for urgent family needs, which was a blatant lie. I presented my evidence, bank statements showing the transfers, the offshore account details, the texts, the recordings. I told the court how she'd manipulated me into signing over the house, how she'd lied about her affair, and how she'd stolen from us for months. Lisa's lawyer tried to dismiss my evidence, claiming it was circumstantial and that I was just a jealous husband trying to control her. But I knew better. I saw her desperation when I laid out the facts, her eyes narrowing, her fake tears trying to sway the judge. I felt a surge of hope, but also a deep sense of anger. I was finally standing up against her lies, fighting for what was rightfully ours. Then the moment of truth. The judge asked for the final verdict. I held my breath. I watched as Lisa's face fell slightly when the judge ruled in my favor. The judge declared that the house, the money, and the offshore accounts all belonged to me, based on the evidence presented. Lisa's lawyer tried to object, but it was too late. The truth was out, and the court saw through her manipulations. When the judge announced the ruling, Lisa's bitchy smirk disappeared. She looked stunned, then angry. She tried to argue again, but the judge cut her off, emphasizing that her actions, siphoning money, lying under oath, manipulating the court, were unacceptable. The judge also ordered her to pay back the stolen funds, plus interest, and barred her from claiming any part of the house. I felt a weight lift, even as the emotional toll of everything still lingered. After the court, I felt numb. The fight was over, but the scars remained. Lisa immediately started her smear campaign, claiming I was abusive and that I'd only won because I had cheated and lied. I ignored her. I knew the truth. I had fought hard, and I had won not just the legal battle but also a piece of my dignity back. I also realized that I'd have to rebuild my life from the ashes of her betrayal. The aftermath was a whirlwind. I moved out of the house, taking only what I needed. The kids stayed with me most of the time, and I made sure they knew I loved them, that I would always be there for them. Lisa tried to manipulate them, but I was firm, showing them that her lies didn't define us. I started therapy, trying to process the betrayal, the anger, the sadness. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had to heal for myself and for my kids. Looking back, I see how naive I was, how trusting. I trusted Lisa with everything, and she used that trust to destroy us. But I also learned that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even if it seems impossible. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, but you can survive it. I learned that justice isn't always swift, but if you stay honest, stay strong, and gather the evidence, you can come out the other side. And most of all, I learned that no matter how much someone hurts you, you have the power to rebuild, one step at a time. Now that everything's settled, I spend a lot of time reflecting on what happened. It's strange, really. I thought I knew Lisa, thought I knew us. Turns out, I didn't really see her at all. She was good at hiding her true self, good at pretending to be the perfect wife, the caring mother. But behind that mask was someone willing to destroy everything we built for her own selfish reasons. The money, the house, even the years of marriage, all she cared about was her own escape plan, her affair, her new life with Jake. The court case was brutal, but it was also a kind of liberation. I fought for what was rightfully mine, not just the money or the house, but my dignity. I learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to get back. But I also learned that you can survive betrayal. You can come out stronger if you're willing to face the truth and stand your ground. I realized I'd been naive, but that's part of life. Sometimes you have to go through hell to find your way back. The kids are doing okay. They're confused, of course, but I make sure they see that I love them unconditionally. I tell them every day that they're safe, that I'll always be there for them no matter what. I want them to grow up knowing that even in the darkest moments, there's a way to find light. It's not easy, and I still carry the pain of what Lisa did, but I know I'm stronger because of it. As for Lisa, I hear she's trying to rebuild her life, but honestly, I don't care anymore. She lost me the day she decided her own happiness was worth destroying everything else. I don't hate her, I just feel sorry for her. Sorry she's so selfish, so manipulative, so willing to lie and cheat to get what she wants. But I refuse to let her poison my future. I've learned to trust myself again, to value honesty and integrity. In the end, I want to share this story because I know others might be going through something similar. Betrayal cuts deep, but it's also possible to heal. You just have to be willing to face the truth, gather your strength, and fight for what's right. Because if I can come out of this mess and rebuild my life, so can anyone else. Trust is precious. Don't let anyone take it from you without a fight. And never forget, even in the darkest moments, there's always a chance for a new beginning.